Hello, I'm Damsky, and we are right here at ETHPrague with Clément Lesaege from Claros. Welcome, Clément. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
So for starters, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your position in Claros?
So for me, I started crypto maybe as a hobbyist around 2013, then finished my studies, and after graduating, I started Claros really right away, starting with 1 month hackathon. And so obviously I'm one of the founders of Claros, and Claros is a dispute resolution system for smart contracts. So you could basically see it as a DAO, which is acting as an arbitration court, giving a ruling, relying on economic incentive to have jurors voting honestly, and enforcing the result of those rulings using smart contracts.
Okay. So when you are talking about disputing some, conflicts in the smart contract space, or in the blockchain space, what are the types of disputes that we have right now?
So Claros is really general purpose. Right now, the most common dispute that we are currently getting those months, we would have all the dispute about insurance claims in Unslash, because about Terra, which was an ecosystem which had a stablecoin UST, and it collapsed, and some people took insurance on the UST peg. So basically, they were insured in case of this UST collapse, and now they are making insurance claim. But not all the claim may be valid, and so you have people challenging some claims, and then this goes to Claros for resolution of those claims. We have a lot of claims those months because of UST, but in general, insurance are pretty calm, because most of the time nothing happens, so there is nothing to make claim about. The other dispute that we are getting are disputes with proof of humanity, which is a registry of humans. So you can see it as a TCR, where you can register as a human, but you can only register one time. And if you try to register multiple times, or if you don't follow the registration rules, people are going to challenge you. And in this case, you have some dispute, which is, did this person follow the registration rules, or are those people the same? Did they try to register multiple times, or are those different person? That's also some kind of dispute we are getting. It's tend to be low value, maybe a few bucks, maybe $20 or something like that. But high volume kind of disputes compared to other applications. We have more disputes in terms of content curation, with what we call curate, which is a generalized TCR. You could see it a bit like the MySQL of TCR, where you can create any TCR from a graphical interface without the need of coding anything. So we are disputed with curate. Sometimes you also see dispute with prediction markets, but those are quite sporadic. So we got some pretty large dispute during the US election, where some people had betted on whether Trump would be re-elected or not. And you got a lot of people, at least from the Trump side, which were arguing that Trump didn't really lose because he's making some legal challenges, and he has some supporter claiming that he won. So we don't really know yet. So we should do 50-50, split the reward between the yes and the no betters. Finally, it was ruled that actually Trump lost the election, and today it's obvious, but back then it was not that obvious and consensual. So any kind of dispute, any kind of contract where you need a subjective input, you can plug Claros there. Most of the time, people are gonna behave honestly. They're gonna report the truth. They're gonna only make valid claims. But sometimes some claim may be ambiguous. Sometimes people are gonna try to abuse the system, and that's why you need dispute resolution. But just plugging a dispute resolution system, it's probably gonna ensure that maybe 97% of the time people are gonna behave honestly, because they know that if they don't, they're gonna get challenged and you're gonna get a Claros dispute. So dispute resolution is not just useful when it happens. It's useful to prevent dispute to happen in the first place, prevent malicious parties to try to abuse the system in the first place.
Yeah, I think this topic is pretty important, because we have to have, I wouldn't say authority, but at least a possibility to objectively or subjectively judge what is actually happening in the space, and having somebody who is fair is pretty important.
Yeah, like, keep in mind, it's always an opting system. Like, it's never like, oh, like, you're gonna be sued in Kleros. No, like, Kleros could not enforce any award on you if you did not specifically opt in to use Kleros. And one of the limitations is that smart contracts, they can only have control over assets they have been explicitly given control of. So when you are making an insurance claim, for example, it's because the insurance application has a custody of some assets which can be paid to the insurers. But you can't just like go on a company or on an individual and make a Kleros dispute there because, well, maybe Kleros is going to say you are right, but then you have no way to enforce it. So Kleros is really an opting system. And that's why it's not like you say authorities. It's not an authority because it's an opting system. It does not affect anyone unless they specifically put themselves in the Kleros ecosystem, either by choosing Kleros as an arbitrator or by choosing an application which has Kleros as its arbitrator.
All right. Thanks for clarifying this. This was actually pretty key for people to understand how this actually works. I got a more general question coming up for you. What do you think are the future trends of basically development in the Ethereum ecosystem? I would like to ask, what do you think is the new wave coming?
Yeah, like definitely rollups. For now, they already have a lot of hype, but for now they are mainly handled or like ultimately controlled by some multi-sigs. So for now that's like cool demo technology, but we don't get the security of rollups yet, but I expect it maybe in 1 year that we're gonna have real rollups, which will in this case completely inherit the security of the underlying chain, so like Ethereum security. Now on the up topic, we have obviously Soulbound tokens. We haven't seen much deployed yet, but like that may be the new trend when projects manage to release some. And I think Soulbound token can be quite interesting. Obviously, you need some unique identity system like linked to that. So proof of humanity can take this role. Because you can't just say, okay, we're gonna make some token and those tokens are non-transferable. Because if you do that, well, you know, I'm gonna take your token, I'm gonna put my address as being a multi-sig, and then if I want, I can always sell the multi-sig. So then like, okay, like your token cannot be transferred from the wallet, but then I can bypass that by transferring the wallet instead of transferring the tokens. So you need to have a way to store those Soulbound tokens in some kind of like wallet, in some address, which cannot be traded. And I think we're gonna be able to do something like that with proof of humanity. And then Soulbound tokens can be interesting, because for now we are mainly relying on deposits. Like, you have a huge lending market, but it's lending, but not in the sense that most people think lending is working. Like, if you come to a lending platform in crypto and you say, oh, can you give me some ETH? I have a project. Can you give me some ETH? I will reimburse you with some interest. Well, no platform is going to give that to you, because all those platforms, they are collateralized lending platform. So you need to put some asset in deposit, and then you can borrow some other asset. So it's more like a financial tool, than a lending, which can be used to start projects. So now if you want to have lending without collateral, well, you need to have some sort of reputation system. And reputations, it means reputation in both ways, like positive reputation, but also negative reputation. This means that if you take a loan and you just run away with the money, like, you should have negative reputation.
Yeah. Well, we can see that reputation systems are very popular in Web2 world. We could definitely see this coming also to Web3, because it's important to have, let's say, some proof of people actually that proof that people are acting normal. So I'm having a question. If we are at the Web2 to Web3-ish transition, can you see more projects from Web2, for example, using Kleros to transition smoothly to Web3? Because some of the Web2 projects have some, let's say, like law restrictions or just some legitimate issues. And can you see Kleros working as a bridge from Web2 to Web3 in terms of like, can you see judges from Web2, for example, trying to work with Claros?
I don't think so. Like we don't really see that. Sometimes you get some project from Web2, but they tend to be more like doing proof of concept. So okay, like they make some cool thing, but that's like, you know, like something that they would have probably made in an hackathon, but not something which is developed further. So just doing proof of concept is not really that interesting, in my opinion, if you have no way to turn it into a legitimate application. So I tend to be way more enthusiastic about Web3 project integrating Claros than Web2 project, because Web3 projects, they really want to use Claros. They're really gonna make their system be connected to Claros, have Claros ruling enforced in their system. That's way more interesting. That's using way more of the power of Claros than like making a proof of concept with a big Web2 company. Also, I don't really think, you know, like, I don't think Claros is going to be used by, I don't know, like Amazon, for example, or eBay or Uber. I think it's going to be used by the Web3 project, which are going to replace those. That's how I see Claros being used. Not Web2 using Claros. That may happen, but I don't think that will be the main driver of adoption.
When we are talking, let's say, about the adoption, I have a question about biggest challenge in the crypto space. Do you think it's, for example, the mass adoption, or what do you think is the biggest challenge in the Web3 space?
Well, we got a lot of adoption recently, but then we bumped into a wall, which was, the block space. Like, at some point, the block space is full, so you can't have more people, you know, like, okay, we can have some other less secure chain, which can take a bit of the influx of newcomers. But this growth was stopped by technological constraints. Now we're gonna have rollups and other scalability solutions, and probably in the next, I would say next bull run, like bull not necessarily in the financial sense, but in the sense of everyone being excited about crypto. Well, I hope we will not have this technological barrier which will stop adoption. That's very specific. Like, for most of the time in crypto, the bottleneck was user. Like, the block were not full, or if they were full of very, very low value transactions. And here you got a huge boom in terms of newcomer, in terms of communication of the ecosystem. And for the first time, the bottleneck became technological. And I think rollups are gonna like remove this barrier, and then we can be like up for another large scale adoption run.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, solving technological barriers with, for example, rollups, and as we can see right now, is definitely a huge help, and will help mass adoption even further. And what made you decide to tackle the let's say, disputing subject in the Web3 space? What was the first idea? Why to begin with that?
So I really started from like the escrow side. So escrow is I don't want to buy a luggage from you, but I don't trust you. I put the money in escrow. I get my luggage. I can unlock it. But if I don't get it, we have some money locked in escrow, and we need a way to determine where this money should go. Should I be reimbursed or should it be paid? So that's really the first problem that we saw. That would require an arbitrator for. And I like to say, like, in France we say, like, il y a de science que du général, like there is only science of the general, like only focus on general problem, not on something very, very specific. So we made Claros as being a general purpose dispute resolution system. And actually, like, escrow disputes were not really very common compared to other kind of disputes. Like, we got way more usage in terms of TCRs, in terms in terms of Oracle, or like some very specific kind of escrow. Like, I was talking before about insurance. In some way it's an escrow. Like, some people are putting some capital to pay insurees, and you pay them like depending of the result of the Claros dispute. So it's like some sort of escrow use case, but not the simple escrow like for buying goods or services that I had in mind at the start. And those kind of simple escrow, I think they're gonna come. But for now, because those tend to be lower value kind of transaction, it's not like financial transaction. It's really like a day-to-day buying of goods and services. They were not really practical to be made with the current fees. because most of the block space was used for financial transactions. Now when we get, well, more throughput, well, you can probably have this kind of freelancer platform or this kind of like project which are going to be competing with Amazon or eBay, and their classic escrow use cases will start to become relevant again.
What are common misconceptions people have in the cryptocurrency space?
Well, common misconception, I think the most common misconception is unit bias. Like even in 2013, like I had some people telling me, whoa, like one Bitcoin is too expensive. It's like 80 euro. It's way too expensive for 1 unit of currency. And they didn't really understand that the amount of currency that you have is not what is important. What is important is the percentage of the total currency supply that you have. So yeah, unit bias. And people played on this unit bias a lot, like stuff like Shiba. It's just like trying to abuse the unit bias. People, like, you often see people, even like in the closed ecosystem, like say, oh, what will happen if PNK is $1? Like, that's very happen a lot, because they are fixated into the unit. Like, we could have made like 10 times less PNK or 1,000 times more PNK. Well, like if you had 1,000 times more PNK could never go to $1, or that would be very unlikely. But people will probably still have this kind of like psychological unsure of what if this currency goes to this price, or what if this currency goes as high as Bitcoin or as Ethereum. But what you have to ask yourself is, what if this market cap goes as high as Bitcoin or Ethereum? That's way more rational from an economic perspective. So yeah, I think unit bias probably the biggest misconception, which is still continuing today.
I can see you are a long timer in crypto, and how has the Web3 or crypto space changed in the past 5 years, and where do you think we are headed in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, well, at the beginning that was really only based on like really for payments. Like for maybe into 2016, you only had payments, and maybe like granting that some hash data was available at a specific time, so like proof of existence. So it was only 2 use cases that we had in blockchain. Once you got the release of the EVM, you really expanded the field of possibilities. Like you could make DAOs, you could make complex multisigs. You could make Kleros. Like Kleros, we could not have made Kleros with previous technology. Like with previous technology, we could have this kind of escrow. Maybe take a simple multisig with buyer, seller, arbitrator. Okay, like you can hack something like that, but that will need to be very, very rudimentary compared to what you can now do with EVM. So I think it's like being more and more generalized purpose. So at first we had just payments. Now we have payments plus finance, plus a bit of information curation. And I expect that in the near future, we will have like day-to-day financial interaction. Well, like, I say finance, but when I say finance, I say more finance in terms of like big finance, when you are making some large investment, not paying your coffee or paying like an employee, like for now it's mainly like for big finance. And now we need to have those kind of like small finance, which should also be there, like the day-to-day use of value transfers. And I think that's the next step that we will have, and that's going to be enabled by not having high transaction fees.
I'm wrapping up here with last question for you. Do you have a specific book or magazine, maybe a podcast or two, that you would like to recommend to the audience to continue their learning in Web3?
Well, in Web3 book, I don't know. What one book I would recommend would be to read Radical Markets, which is not specifically about crypto, but it's like a book about economics, and a lot of economics can be really relevant for the crypto space that we are building. Because, I started maybe from like a political, perspective, I started crypto from the Pirate Party. And when you are in a political party, most of your, time and thoughts are not on what to do, but on how to make what you've already decided that should be done at the nation level or at the government level. But now when we are in Web3, you can create a system, like economic system by yourself. That's mechanism design, and you need to know a bit about game theory for that. But most of your work and thoughts is not on how to make what you create be applied, but on how to create the best system possible. And because of that, I would really advise anyone working on Web3 project to have this kind of basics of economics, mechanism design, to make the best system possible. And you can do that permissionlessly. That's what is like the beauty of Web3. You don't need to ask the permission of anyone. You set up your economic system, and if it's good, well, people will use it. And if it's good, it's gonna work. And if it's not good, well, it's gonna be like UST and it's gonna crash.
All right, Clément, that was amazing. Thank you for coming for this short interview, and we will see you at the next one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.